Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guest today is a man named Arnold Halpern, and he's here to talk about photography today. He has asked if he could leave his cap on during the interview because the lights are really bright in here. And I think I understand what he means because I see myself when I look at the program later, I see myself squinting sometimes. Thank you for agreeing to be on Fresh Perspectives, Arnold.
It is a pleasure to be here, Gail. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, you're welcome. And Arnold, we're going to talk about how to take better photos. And would you tell the viewing audience something about yourself and how you wound up getting started in your photography?
Well, Gail, I have been interested in photography ever since I've been maybe 10 or 11 years old. Of course, in those days, we did film photography, and I learned to create my own pictures and take my own pictures and develop them and print them during my school years of grade school and high school. And in high school, I had the opportunity to get a better camera, so-called, and I took photos for the school newspaper intermittently. But the good news is that that camera permitted me to go to all kinds of basketball games, football games, and then subsequently, when I got into college, I upgraded my camera, and I became the photographer for the Rutgers University paper at that time.
Oh, okay. Was that where you went to college?
Yes, I went to Rutgers in New Brunswick, New Jersey. In those days, they didn't have schools for photography except in New York. But I was in South Jersey, and I didn't have opportunity. So I learned by so-called the road of hard knocks, or by the seat of my pants, or by listening to others. But I had a good opportunity, and I became a press photographer for the Atlantic City Press when I was in second year college. And I continued to do that intermittently through my college career. And I was taking pictures with photographers from Look magazine, Life magazine, and many other high-powered photographers. And with what we had, I had a 4x5-inch Crown Graphic, which was a large camera. And I'm going to show you one of the first pictures, or one of the pictures I took and you can see this. And do you know who that is?
Is that Richard Nixon?
That's Richard Nixon. And the person standing next to him, I guess over on the other side, over here, is the head of the NAACP. And the other gentleman, I don't know who he is really, but I don't know how he got there. But look at as everybody was gazing to this other gentleman, and the eyes here have it.
Oh yeah.
And this is an actual silver photograph which I took maybe 40, 50 years ago, and look how it kept up. So those are one of my earlier photographs. In the early 2000s, we then got into digital photography, and now we're as you see here, I don't know if you can see this. This is a Canon camera, which was one of my first Canon cameras, and you can use this even today, and it works very, very well. But it's heavy, and it's very conspicuous when you go to take pictures hither and yon. So most people today have graduated to using the cell phone as a photography tool. And you can do very well with the iPhone camera. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some tips as to make better pictures using just your cell phone.
Sounds like a really good idea.
Okay. The first thing that you need to do with the cell phone is to clean the lens of the camera. And as you can see here, the clean as you would use an optical cleansing cloth, and do not use your finger because the finger has oils on it. So you want to have a real optical cleaning cloth just to clean your little tiny lens on the camera. Next. And the other thing that I would suggest is that you hold the camera, and now look at this picture right here. Look how this gentleman's holding the camera with two hands. You have to keep the camera steady. Many people will hold the camera with just one hand and push the button, but you can see he's pushing the button from inside from where he's holding it. Next. And here you see, you want to get sharp pictures. So here's how he's holding the camera using the vertical portion of the camera, in other words, upside down or in a different way. But he's using two hands to hold the camera, and he's probably using his thumb to take the picture. But holding the camera steady is extremely important, especially if you're taking portraits or you're taking landscapes. Next. So, as you can see, holding the camera steady is very, very important. And I often use the iPhone tripod. You can use it like for a self-timer or video or just to make sharper pictures. And the tripod, you can see the little tripod I have here. And the tripods come even in larger versions. But next. And here you can see an iPhone on top of another tripod. And I have seen many times photographers use a larger, very thin tripod to hold the camera when taking photographs of flowers or landscapes. So, but holding the camera steady is important. Specifically, you might say, why? And the reason it's important to hold it steady is if you try to blow it up and enlarge it, it'll be fuzzy and out of focus. So holding it steady is very important. Next. So the question is, how do you focus and adjust the exposure? It's very simple. When you bring up your picture on the iPhone, you can take your finger and put it right on the subject or what you want it to for it to be sharp, and that will focus. The camera will focus on that specific area. If you don't do that, the camera will automatically focus wherever it wants. So you want to place your finger on the subject that you're trying to take a picture of. Now, the interesting thing is that you can adjust the exposure by moving your finger up or down. If you may move it up on the picture that you're taking, the picture will become lighter, and if you move your finger down, it will become darker. So you can adjust the exposure. And for example, if you're taking a picture of a portrait of somebody and the face looks dark, you would then lighten it up by just taking your finger and pushing it up, and not only putting it on the face of the individual, but moving your finger up. Next. Now, a lot of people will try to enlarge the picture to get to their subject, and you can do that on the iPhone by just taking two fingers and stretching your fingers out, which will enlarge the picture. And the answer is you should not do that with the iPhone. And the reason is that the picture is made up of millions of pixels, and these pictures are little tiny dots. And as you enlarge the camera or the picture in the iPhone, those little dots will get wider and wider, and thus the picture will become fuzzier when it's enlarged. So the important point is to move in closer to the subject rather than enlarging it in the frame of the camera. Next. So the other thing that you can do very easily is called the rule of thirds. And this is a very basic camera setting which we do in any camera or that you might use. And you can turn the grid lines on by going to the settings on your camera, the settings, and looking for camera. So you just key down to camera and hit that, and then when you're into that area, it'll come up to put. You have to tap the grid lines to be put on. And if you see on the left side there's crosshairs, and the interesting aspect is that when you take a photograph, if you put the subject in the middle, it's not as interesting as when it's on one side or the other, or in the lower third or the upper third. As you can see in that photograph on the left side, the individual is on the left third, and that's the best place to put your subject, or any subject. Next. Now here are two examples of this. There's a waterfalls, and the subject is on the right side of the photograph. You can see he's in the right third of the photograph. On the right side there, the right picture, the lady's head is on the bottom third, and so the picture becomes more interesting than if the subject is in the center. Next. And here is a photograph that I took actually in near Westfield, as a Amish barn. And the subject, which is the red roof, is sitting up on the left side, left third. It goes into the middle third, but basically on the left. There's two things here that are important. First, the roof is on more on one-sided, which makes it more interesting, and the color red attracts attracts the viewer. The viewer means the person that's going to see the picture in the very end. His or her eyes will go to the left and first, and the reason for that, Gail, is that we read from left to right. Now,
okay.
if you were brought up in Israel, where they read Hebrew is read from right to left.
Oh,
so
okay.
When you read, you always go to the left, and therefore the best place to put the subject, any subject, is on the left side of the photograph, and your eyes will go directly toward that area, and then move to the right. That's a secret that many people don't know.
Yeah, I never heard that before, not from anybody.
Yes. Yes. Well, these are little tips. Okay. Okay. So, so I said here, focal point upper left Y. Well, the Y is that's how you read. Next slide. The other thing that most people do is to stand with their camera and take a picture just standing up of whatever it is, another person, a landscape, an animal, or what have you. However, but you should try to shoot from different angles. And in this picture, the photographer got down, just stooped down and took a picture with the camera facing up toward the clouds. The clouds was the background, and it's certainly more interesting than looking at the individual straight on.
Oh, okay. Now, are there certain angles where people seem more photogenic if they're taken from?
Well, true. If you want to take a portrait and you want to focus on the face, and we'll look at some portraits later on.
Okay.
And we'll talk about how to pose an individual for a portrait.
Okay.
Okay. Next. So here's shooting from different angles. Now look at this. That's a skateboard. The first on the left is that you are looking down at the skateboard, okay? And the second one is that they got down lower and got in closer. So the right-hand photograph is much more interesting than the left. It makes it, and it also fills the frame. What I mean by filling the frame of the photograph, the frame, and as you fill it, it's more interesting than if the subject, whatever it is smaller in the frame.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, I mean, you can hardly, in the one on the left, you can hardly make out what you're seeing.
Exactly. So again, moving in closer to the subject is always more interesting, especially if you're photographing children. You want to get in very close to the child's face rather than being further back. Next, please. This is a very interesting thing that you can do with the iPhone. Turn the camera upside down. Now, you don't have to do this all the time, but here is an iPhone, and what this photographer has done, they actually took a little water and put it on the beach there. And there was a bicycler in the background. And what she did, it was a woman, she turned the phone upside down. And as you can see on the right side, you're looking at a low view going up. And if you turn the camera right side up, which you normally would do, it would just be a regular photograph of the bicycler. But when she turned the camera upside down, you see the ground, what's in the ground in the foreground. And that brings me to another issue. When you take a photograph, you have to say, well, what's in my foreground and what is in the background? And sometimes you don't want what's ever in the background. It could be leaves, it could be tree, it could be a flower, and it's not, but there's something in front of that you really want to take a picture of. So considering, you always need to consider what is in the foreground and what is in the background, and and here, as you can see in that picture, the background was the sky, and it was very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And then there was the reflection on the water.
And the reflection, and that's why she put it upside down. Mm-hmm. Okay, next. Now here, this is the bell tower over at Chautauqua Institution, and this has this is one of my, I would call it better pictures, one that I've liked the best, let me put it that way. And I've actually framed, and I could frame it better, but if you look at the foreground and then you look at the background, the framing is with the two trees. So you're looking now between the two trees, and really what I could have done, and I should do, is to what I call crop or take off the sky on the right and the sky on the left, and just use the two trees to makes you focus on the bell tower and the person sitting in front. So if you see the front, you see the person sitting in the front, and then you see the bell tower in the back, and you bring the two of them together, it makes a pleasing photograph. That photograph was taken quite a while ago, but I've enjoyed it a lot, and I think that it describes how you can adjust the foreground and the background and framing. Framing is important. Next. Now, if you can turn the camera horizontal, or you can turn it vertical. Here are two times I use the camera in a vertical position. The left picture is a picture of the Jupiter lighthouse in Florida. And when I took that picture, if I turned the camera horizontal, you would see a lot of extraneous stuff in there, and I just wanted to focus and have the focal point. It be, of course, is the not bell tower, but the lighthouse. And the lighthouse is red. Remember I said before? So your eye is attracted to the red. And notice that the lighthouse is on the right side of the photograph. So it encompasses several of the points that I've already made. The other one is a Amish phone booth, which is out here by Sherman or Clymer in that area there. And I thought that was interesting.
Oh, an Amish phone booth?
That's an Amish phone booth.
Do they
and if you
have
blew it up, if you walk closer, you could see the phone in there.
Oh, okay. So, those are like landline phones that they can.
That was a landline phone.
A landline phone that they can.
I took that about 10 years ago.
Do they have to pay like a pay phone?
No, it's a regular phone.
Just a regular.
It's just hooked up to the house. If you go out by Clymer, you will see from time to time on an Amish house, you'll see the phone booth outside. You wonder what the little.
I almost thought I was seeing an outhouse there when you first brought
No,
up
it's not
the
an
pictures.
Yeah. Okay. You see here. Look how close. You can see the little chair there. The
Right.
phone is right there, and you can see out through that window. You can see some of the landscape.
Okay.
I enjoyed taking that picture.
Yeah, it's a cute picture.
And this is the horizontal framing that I talked to about. Here's the barn that we saw before, and on the right side is
The Hall of Philosophy.
the Hall of Philosophy at the Chautauqua Institution. And speaking about the right-sided photograph, I decided one day that I really wanted to take a picture of the Hall of Philosophy, and I walked around and chose the position that I thought would be the best. And I walked on the right side of it and the left side of it, and there's a tree there, if you can see on the right side. And I put the tree right, I took this picture specifically so that the tree would go along with one of the columns there, because I wanted to, otherwise the tree would be in the middle of the photograph if I stood. Positioning yourself as to what you want to take and where you should take it, it takes a little time, but if you spend the time, it becomes. Now, look at this. Look, you see the tree?
I see it. Yeah.
If you walk to the right, the tree would move to the left. If you move, you have to take the picture however you're going to take it, but positioning yourself is most important. Next.
Oh, how cute.
Okay, so this is a classic example of framing the photograph. And when I see a dog, I've seen many little beautiful dogs and cats, etc. But when you see a dog hanging out of a car window, that is a picture, because you have an automatic frame, as you can see on the right side, and on the left side it's the same. And getting the two dogs to put their heads out the window is a trick. That was actually taken in Westfield, the left one.
Oh, was it?
That was taken in Westfield on a Labor Day about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And this man came with these barking dogs in his car. And I was just sitting there I had my camera on. In fact, it was this camera that I had shown you before. Mm-hmm. And I literally jumped up because I absolutely knew that there was a photograph there. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And I actually asked the man whose dogs it was to stand outside with me and call the dogs so that they both put their heads out the window, because their head was in, my head was out. But I got them so that they had their heads out, and I was able to get that photograph. The one on the right side, as you can see, is a black-white photograph I took many years ago, and it was one of the first dog pictures I've taken. And I always knew that the dog hanging out a car window is a better photograph because it frames it. The framing makes you look at the subject. Next, please. The next one is this picture I took in Westfield, and I took it with this iPhone that I brought here today. So where was this taken?
Was it at the canine rescue?
That was taken.
Not at the canine rescue.
I'm sorry? No. This was taken, believe it or not, by Brazil's restaurant. You know, Brazil restaurant. There was and I had dinner there, and I was walking outside, and I said to my wife, I think that's this dog was looking outside the window. I knew that. Remember, I said when I see the animal framed, that is an automatic picture. And I took a lot of pictures of him just with my cell phone very quickly, and the dog would not look at me. I was hoping the dog would look at me.
Oh.
He would not look at me. I mean, I'm saying it's a he, she. However, but the interesting thing about this particular picture, besides the framing, is that now there was an arm behind the dog, and I was able to edit that out because I thought it would distract. But the question is, what is the dog thinking? And I've asked a lot of people. I've shown this in exhibits that I've had, and everybody's interested in what possibly could the dog be thinking, and everybody has a different opinion as to what the dog was thinking. And the fun part of this is that there is no answer, but you make up the story in your own mind. In other words, when you see a picture, you actually can make a story as to what's happening there. Of course, we don't know what the dog is thinking.
Right. Sometimes you can figure out. I've been figuring out things about. We live out in the country, and I've been figuring out things about what the animals are thinking just by what they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that dog, see, either was hungry, was tired, or was just interested in what was doing outside. Who knows?
It wasn't interested in you, was it, Arnold?
No, it was not interested in me for sure. Next, please. Now, these pictures of flowers. There are so many beautiful flowers that we see, especially in the spring and summer and fall. And these, the one on the left was taken across the street from where I live. And if you notice, what do you notice about these two pictures? That are anything special or no?
Well, the flowers are brightly colored ones.
Indeed.
There's the background is quite dark behind the yellow ones.
Yes.
But you see more green behind the fuchsia-colored ones.
What I'm looking for specifically is that if you notice, I have 3 flowers in the picture.
Oh, yes.
You notice
okay.
that? Now, if you take a picture of a flower with one flower, it's not as interesting as 2 or 3. And generally, 3 is the magic number. You could take 5, but 3 or 5 is better than 2 or 4. I'm not sure the reason for that, but it makes a better picture. And of course the color is important, and having a dark background allows the viewer to see the flower and not be distracted. One of the points in photography is when you show a picture, you don't want to have other things in the picture to distract your vision from the subject. So you can do that several ways. You can put your finger on the subject if it's in the foreground, and the background will become more fuzzy or out of focus. And that allows you to see the subject clearly and in focus. If you don't do that, if you don't focus the camera, the iPhone or your camera, then the camera will choose its own focal point, and it may not be where you want it to be. So, of course, I wanted not only did I want the flowers to be in focus, I wanted the centers of the flower to be in focus. So, in order to do that, I had to use a tripod. I went into, I think the right one was done at a flower show. And and there were a lot of people, many people there, people were taking one picture after the other. But I walked in with a regular tripod on the camera, and I set the tripod down and focused my camera specifically on that flower. And the best flower pictures I've ever taken have always been with a tripod or holding the camera very, very steady.
Okay.
Okay? Next.
Yeah.
Now, as far as friends, I put friends and family. And there's several things I want to point out here. The one thing I want to say about posing one person, is that you want to, firstly, you want to look and see where the light is coming from. And now, what I mean by that is the light behind you and facing the individual, and or is it coming in from the side? Side lighting, in other words, if the sun is on the one side or the other side, you'll get deep shadows. If the sun is overhead, if the light is overhead, your eyes will be dark. There'll be a dark shadow under your nose and underneath the chin. So you have to be very careful. People don't think of that, and I've seen many good pictures go to waste because the individual taking the picture doesn't take a moment to see where the light is coming from. Now, the first two pictures that you're looking at were taken in the shade. If there's a sunny day out, do not take the picture in the middle of the sun because of shadowing. You want to put the subject in a shady area under a tree. And one area I like are pine trees in the background because they're dark, and that will allow your subject to come out. But more important, there's enough light reflection to come into the shade to light up your subject. And the first two are taken without a flash, and they were just taken, they were actually taken in the Chautauqua institution. This gentleman was just leaning up against the wall, and this lady was sitting on a bench, but they were in the shade. Mm-hmm. The third one, that lady was, when I took her, 100 years old.
Oh, wow. She doesn't look it in the picture, does it?
The unfortunate thing is she didn't live much longer after that photograph. That was the last photograph that woman ever had. Oh. And what happened, there was a wedding in my neighborhood, and the family wanted me to take a picture of her. I probably used the camera that I have on my right here, and I was kind of shocked because I wasn't expecting it. And I used a little flash to brighten up her face. But she was in. I had to look for a place where she would be in the shade, and the background are actually pine trees, but it was in the shady area, so it looks dark. Yeah. That was her last picture. Wow. So, but you don't need to have flash. You can just take the subject and be sure to put them in a shaded area so that the sun is not hitting them. Mm-hmm. Now,
the man has a serious expression on his face. The man has a serious expression on his face. Is that what you wanted him to look like?
Well, I mean, I took a series of pictures of him, so I saw, you don't have to have the person always looking at the camera. I mention that because sometimes a person looking away from the camera or above your shoulder or on the right side may be more interesting than looking right at the camera. Mm-hmm. Now, next. Now, here's a situation. I went to a senior prom. It was my daughter's senior prom. And when we got there, this was at someone's house prior to the prom, and they had everyone come, all the students come in their gowns and tuxedos, etc., all dressed up, and at her house. And there were many children there, many kids there. They're teenagers. And she insisted to have the kids come out on the back porch. On the left side, you see it's directly or partially in the sun, and you can see that there's some areas are shaded, some are overexposed. You can't really take a good picture in the direct sun. The one on the right, I took my daughter and her friend and their dates over to a shaded area, and there's enough light reflection to come in and brighten them up. So you can see the difference when you try to take in the sun or out of the sun.
Is that why you took the picture in the sun, just so that...
No, I took it. I had to take the picture because they were making groups in the back of the house where the sun was. Oh. But I didn't. I knew it was the wrong area. I knew it. I couldn't control it.
That's where the lady
who owned the house was controlling everything. But then I talked to her. I said, "Do not line up the kids in the back. Bring them into the front of the house." And we'll take a look at that. So next slide. Here is the number of kids that were in that house,
wow.
Had come. Now you might say, well, how did I get that picture? Oh my goodness. Now, you can imagine the number of parents there. There was a multitude of parents taking pictures. And so how would I get a picture of that sort? If I went too far back, you wouldn't even be able to recognize any of the kids. If I came up too close, then I could only get a small group.
Right.
So I turned the camera so it was vertical, okay, believe it or not, and I took 4 pictures, and I stood there. And you can usually do this with a tripod, but I didn't have a tripod with me. But I took 4 pictures, one on the left side. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and then what I did, I actually put it into Lightroom. And did and I did a panoramic, and the Microsoft, the Adobe Lightroom actually put it together, Adobe Photoshop, into a panoramic. But the interesting thing is, I don't use panorama in the iPhone as much, but there is a setting in the iPhone for panoramic, and you can take several pictures and they will stitch it together very, very nicely in the iPhone. So one of the settings in the iPhone is panoramic setting, and you could play around with that. But that was an interesting photograph. And notice it was done in the shade. It was not in the sun. And look how and there was no flash or anything that I used there. And it came out beautifully.
It did turn out beautifully.
Next, please. This is a fun photograph I took of my daughter, Rachel. This is when she was about 12 or 13. And I used one light. You could even use a light that you would get a light with a shade, and you can see the shadow in the back. And she put on a pair of glasses on and a wig that we had for Halloween. And the background was just a shade. There was I took a window shade that you can pull down.
Oh yes.
And I hung it behind her.
Oh.
And as a matter of fact, I have that photograph here, I think. Yes.
I knew that was a wig before you told me.
Yes.
I mean, it just looked like one.
And here's that photograph that I took to her when she was about. Quite a few years ago. But I enjoyed that photograph, and this was a very, very simple picture. This was taken with the film, obviously.
Yeah, it is a pretty interesting
Now,
picture.
one of the things I want to tell you, next please, let's see if we can, what we're coming into next. Okay, now you see this is my wife Barbara on the left side.
Right.
Again, this is a portraiture, these are headshots. I do headshots on a lot of people for applications, for posterity, for their business, and basically I use a white or slightly dark background. The picture of my daughter on the right was taken with one light and a reflector, and it was taken in a bedroom where I had a lighter wall. And she used that to apply for college and dental school. And still use it today. But I took my time taking that picture. So I enjoyed taking that, and I enjoyed taking them. The interesting thing, let's see if we have more portraits. Next, please. Yes, these are more headshots, and as you can see, I do this for applications, for business, and posterity. The gentleman on the left was running for mayor down in Georgia, I believe, or one of the Carolinas, I don't know. But he became mayor from that picture. And this was done in my basement with just a plain paper background. And the lady in the middle, I'm not sure what, she was applying for something up in Rochester. And the lady on the right is an artist. And but what I want to point out here is that there were 2 or 3 things. One, I often pose to people, and if you have a group of people, this I think is the most important. Do not have everybody stand 180 degrees. You want to turn them 45 degrees. So you would. Like the man on the left and on the right side, you see I have them at 45-degree angles. You see that?
I see that,
okay.
Yes.
And the lady in the middle, I didn't, but she's, and this is especially true if you have a group of people. You must always place them at 45 degrees. Maybe the men in the back and the women in front, or something of that sort. And be sure you can see everybody's face, but they all have to be at 45 degrees. And do you know why that is?
Do they look better in the picture?
They look much better. They look a lot thinner and a lot cuter.
Oh, okay. Thanks for telling me.
Yes, that is, most people don't do that. They'll say, oh, line up here. And then they'll all be standing, and it's a wider photograph, and they don't look as well as when they're 45 degrees, and each standing, in this direction. You understand?
Right.
Yeah. So that is an important point. I've seen too many photographers do this. I've seen this a lot at the Athenaeum. Have you ever been to the Athenaeum Hotel over in Institute?
I was just there on Tuesday.
Okay. I have seen this over and over again. Person will be all dressed up to have dinner there and with the family. And they'll say, oh, we want to take a photograph. And where are we going to stand? And most people will stand so that they have the lake behind them.
Oh.
And usually in the afternoon, especially around noontime, or the light is coming off the water and onto the porch. In other words, the light is coming from the lake, from that onto the porch. And if you're standing with the light behind you, all the faces will be dark.
Oh, yeah.
All the faces will be dark. So you have 2 options. You can use a fill flash, put a flash on the camera, or you can have them turn around and stand with you standing with your back toward the lake, take the picture going the other way. You should always look for that. And I was at an engagement party, and I wanted to help the person being engaged with photography, but she had to have it her own way. And we were on a dock. It was on a fishing a sailing place. And they wanted to have everybody standing by the water, and I saw all the faces were dark, and I don't know how those pictures came out. Mm-hmm. So that is a big thing, that if you just remember that, to look and make sure the face is bright. If it's in dark, you can see it, then turn the people around, mm-hmm. so that their face shows, mm-hmm. nicely.
Another thing that I've noticed is it seems like when you take a picture on a somewhat cloudy day, they turn out better than on a sunny day.
Absolutely. My wife often will say, let's take pictures. I said, but the sun is shining too brightly, and the noon is the worst. The noon is the worst because everybody's eyes are black and the big shadows. But I mean, if you can take it during the day, but take it in the shade or cloudy day. Cloudy day is often the best. You're right. Next, please. Okay, so can you edit the photographs? The answer is yes. Now, with the iPhone, you can go to the area. You see the little area that I have? That's where you would show the pictures on your iPhone. And then when you bring up the picture, you'll see on top there it says edit. And you just hit that, and you can do a variety of things with your own cell phone. You can crop the picture, meaning that you can take out certain areas in the picture if you want. You can adjust the brightness, you can make it darker, you can make it lighter, you can make it warmer, you can make it cooler. Warmer meaning like a more pink or orange color. You can do quite a bit just from the simple iPhone edits. And people don't know how to edit the photograph, but it's you can do a lot right on the iPhone. Next. Now there are certain edits that you can get from the App Store for free. You know, free is my favorite word. Mm-hmm. There's a program called Snapseed, Snapseed. And you can do much more with Snapseed than you can with the edits on the iPhone. There's one called Retouch. There's one called Bokeh, B-O-K-E-H, Lens. What that does is to allow you to focus with your finger. You can paint the area in that you want focused, and then the rest of it will be blurred out so that you can really focus on the photograph.
Oh, okay.
And the last one is Lightroom. That's an Adobe product. You can get and you can do a lot of editing with that. However, these are things that you can do, and you need to spend a little time working on your iPhone to do that. Next, please. So some of the pictures that you saw today is with the iPhone Photography School or iPhone Photography Photo Academy course. And you can go and find many of these tips that I showed you right on the internet, and the person, his name is Emil. Emil, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but you'll find that he does a very good job explaining a lot of the tips on the internet. Now you can keep your good shots by taking them off the camera and sending them to Shutterfly or another area outside the camera, or you can send the photograph right to yourself right from the iPhone. So you have a way of keeping the photographs sending them to your friends. And the nice part about the iPhone is you can take many pictures very quickly. That can be good and bad, but if you take your time and use a tripod and hold the camera correctly, you'll get a lot of nice pictures.
Mm-hmm. Have we seen all of the pictures that we were going to show yet?
What's that?
The pictures. Have we seen them all?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, I kind of wanted to ask you if you have tips on like makeup and clothing colors and things.
Definitely. As far as makeup is concerned, it depends on the individual. Usually younger individuals need a lot less because as long as their complexions are smooth and as far as general makeup, I would say minimal general makeup is necessary. You don't need to overdo it. As far as clothing, I particularly like clothes, especially blouses that are one color, white, pink, nothing like red or dark or bright blue. But black is always very good for photography because it allows the viewer to concentrate on the face.
Okay.
As far as hair is concerned, many women have long hair, and I found that you need to try to put the hair either in the back or bring it on one side or the other. And I did this recently on one of my customers, and her hair, we brought it on the left side of her face, and it didn't look good as on the right side. Sometimes the hair can be brought down to frame the face too. I usually ask all the people that I take pictures of professionally to make sure that their hair is combed and that hair is not hairs are not standing out from the head because that's distracting.
Oh yeah.
I like if you're wearing a V-neck blouse, I'd like to have like a little
necklace.
A little necklace there
to
cover it up, depending on how deep the cut is. So I usually will start off at 45-degree angles one way or the other because everybody's a little bit different, and I always focus on the eyes. If the eyes are out of focus, it doesn't do anything. You lost the photograph. So I work very carefully. I take to take one of those pictures there. I may take maybe 5 or 10. It could be as many as I want, because you can take that with digital photography. With film photography, you're limited, obviously. But with digital, you can take many pictures until you actually get what you really want.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You like to have people setting forward in portraits, and like this sitting.
With an arm up on something.
Like you saw the picture of the lady sitting
on a bench.
Well, she was sitting on the bench.
Right, right.
And she was leaning forward like that.
Yeah,
so
it looks like she was kind of sitting sideways
on
the bench, so that the back of the bench could be in
over. So that's
the bench could be in the picture.
Right. That helped frame her. Remember framing, and then she was leaning into the picture. So you can have the person lean in. And you have to watch their head as far as whether the chin is up or the chin is down. Okay. So I think that if you do those few little things, the pictures will be a lot better.
Now, with the head itself, is there a certain position a person should hold their head in
Sometimes a little bit to the right, sometimes a little bit to the left. It depends on the individual face and their expressions. There's a professional photographer in New York. He likes who does headshots, but professional headshots. And he likes the persons to be squinting. He likes people to squint a little bit.
Oh, he likes them
I don't
to
like
squint?
that. I have never gone for that. I think he is taking too many pictures of celebrities. You know, when people squint, that's different than if their eyes are open and brighter. I like the eyes open, brighter type, but he gets paid a lot of money for what he does, so I don't know.
Now, I know that, I do know this for a fact, that you have taught photography classes at the Chautauqua Institution.
Yes.
During their summer program, their
Yes.
summer education program. Do you still do that?
Not right now, no. The institute has cut back on the on all courses, and my time has been limited because of my family. But so I haven't been teaching, but I enjoy teaching, and I certainly will. If I have the opportunity, will do it again.
Because I remember that was the first time I met you. You and I were going to be teaching classes.
Oh yes.
This on the same week this one time several years ago,
Yes.
and we were set up next to each other at the meet and greet.
Right.
At the beginning on the Sunday of the week we were going to be teaching, where people can come and talk to the people who are going to be teaching the classes.
At that time, I was teaching in an area which I didn't discuss today, is how to use flash photography. And I enjoy using flash photography only because there are instances where you, especially if you're, I have done photographs of weddings and get-togethers and people having dinners, this sort of thing. And you really need to have good lighting indoors. And so I was teaching flash photography at that particular point. And I use it from time to time. But for general photographs in the family, most people will use their cell phones today.
Oh yeah.
You know, but if you want, for the photography I use for the headshots, I will use the regular camera because I can really focus in on that. But you can do the same thing with the cell phone. So that's why I'm particularly pointing that out to you today.
Oh yeah, because that's what so many people are doing now. Yes.
Indeed, the quickest thing to do is to reach in your pocket, and when push comes to shove, your camera is in your pocket, and it's very handy.
Well, we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives, and I want to say that I really appreciate your coming on and sharing your knowledge about photography with us.
It is my pleasure, and I thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I will see those of you in the viewing audience when we do the next episode.